Hi there, I'm Steve the Bread Guy, and I've been making some bread today. This is red rice bread. And red rice bread, as you can guess, has red rice in it, but it's not just that it's got red rice on top of it, it also has red rice in its flour, because I actually made some red rice flour at home. What I did was, I took some red rice that I bought from the health food store, and I put it through a regular coffee grinder that I use just for grinding up grains. And what you get is a really nice, fine, reddish kind of flour, like this. And this stuff makes for a really nice nutty bread. So in this particular video, you're going to need something to grind up some red rice. You'll need some red rice, and you'll need to grind it with a coffee grinder that's hopefully never been used for coffee. So if you have anything like that, I invite you to try this. And if you don't, just watch and see how easy it is, because it's not hard to make your own flour. It's weird. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that people have made flour from, right? Wheat, barley, rye, rice, quinoa. There's all sorts of different types of flour out there, and you can actually make some of them at home. So that's what I did, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and you can make some of these, and they smell amazing, and as I said, they have a really nice nutty flavor and a really good crust. So get your stuff together, and I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so to start this red rice bread, what we need is you need a bowl and some yeast, instant dry active yeast. Put 2 teaspoons in there. Okay, 1, 2, and then we're going to add 2 cups of warm water. The water shouldn't be so warm that it hurts your finger, but it should be a little bit warmer than lukewarm. So put that in there, and that's going to need about 10 or 15 minutes to activate. You'll be able to tell that it's activated because there'll be a sort of scum on the top. It'll be very noticeable. So while that's doing that, let's just move on to making our red rice flour. So this is my spice grinder. It's actually just a coffee grinder that I got in a store, like for 20 bucks, nothing too expensive. And this is the red rice. Red rice you can buy at health food stores, pretty much anywhere, and whole grain rice would work for this too, like brown whole grain rice, or even some of those mixed rices would work. But I'm just using red because I like the fact that it kind of gives a reddish tinge to the bread. So what I want to do is create 2 cups worth of the flour. So put in 1 cup. I find that, and actually I'll need a bowl for this, 1 second. Yeah, a bowl right here. So I'll have somewhere where you can put the flour once you've got it. Now this is a bit of a loud process, so forgive me. I like to do this when no one else is around, just because it is kind of loud. So don't fill it all the way to the top. Just put it about 3/4 of the way. Put on the top, and then press grind. And what you want to do is get a flour out of it, basically. It doesn't have to be as powdery as, say, a white flour, but it should obviously not be chunks. A little bit of chunks is fine. That actually gives the thing some texture, but you don't want it to be too chunky. So I'll show you in a second. So let's get it mixing. The nice thing about rice is that it does grind up pretty easily. I've tried this with wheat berries using a spice grinder, or rather a coffee grinder, and with wheat berries, they're big, they're really, really solid, and you get a very coarse flour out of it, which is not terribly useful. It makes for a really, really heavy bread, whereas this is different. This comes out as quite a nice flour. So okay, so that's the first bit. As you can see, I'll pull some out. It's quite fine. It's like finer than brown sugar, and it'll work just fine as a flour. So I'm just going to dump that in there and do that all over again. So this will take a few batches. So for the sake of filmmaking and you watching, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. But I'll end up making 2 cups. Like I'll fill 2 cups with rice and put it through here. Periodically give it a shake, just to make sure that the blades on the bottom are getting to touch and grind up everything. And it's okay if you have a little bit of stuff which looks like sugar. You'll see that some parts of it just stay white and they look like sugar, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. But you do want to have a lot of the very fine stuff. Okay. Another one. And the last one. And that's what it looks like inside. So as you can see, it's very powdery. It's really nice. It's very powdery. It smells good too, for that matter. Okay, so now we have certainly 2 cups worth of this, and it's turned out quite well. It sort of looks like brown sugar when you do it like this. It's got a coarser texture. So it feels as though there's hard crystalline sugar, the big stuff you can put on cakes on the top. It feels like there's some of that in there, as well as just a regular sort of brown flour. So the next thing we need to do then is to start mixing it all up, and during the time that we've been grinding, the yeast has activated, which is nice. So that's the way it should look, nice and scummy on top. So the next thing we do is 2 teaspoons of salt. 1, 2, and I want to put in 2 cups of regular flour, just because I do want this to rise. I don't want it to be heavy bread, and the regular flour will help it rise, being a light flour and full of gluten. So 1, give it a stir. I'll start with 1 1/2, just so we can gradually add in the red rice flour. Because often I'll want about half a cup of flour at the end, as I'm just doing the finishing touches on the kneading and stuff. So we'll start with 1 1/2 cups of white flour. That mixture going, and then start adding in the red rice flour. And we'll basically add it until there's enough. In the past, 2 cups has been plenty. Let's see. This bread has a really nice color to it, and it also has a really nice nutty flavor to it, which is kind of weird since it's rice. But it tastes nutty, which is good, without the nuts. So if you have nut allergies, this could be a good thing for you. I actually think it's kind of fun that you can use something as humble as a coffee grinder to make flour. Because the milling of flour has always been one of those things which was hard to do at home. I mean, in the really old days, like biblical times, the task of grinding the flour, at least for poor people, was left to the women, and they did it between stones, literally a rock, like a rock about this big, curved on the bottom, and they'd push, and they had another rock on top, and they would just grind their grains into it. Really, really hard work, and you wouldn't get a very fine flour. Meanwhile, the rich folk were using animals to hold big millstones, big stones that were at least this thick, where they put the flour through a hole and down the top. It would get in between the stones, and then the animals would make the stones go like this, or I guess all the way around, and then there was a hole in the bottom for the flour to come out. That, of course, takes money and resources if you're going to get the animals to do it. So it always costs money for the peasants to go to get their stuff ground more finely than they could do themselves. So there's always been power struggles over who could grind your grain. So it's kind of cool that you can now do it with something that was meant for coffee. It costs $20, and you can make your own flour at home. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I have put in all of the red rice flour that I ground. That was about 2 cups worth. So now I'm just going to fill this out with some more white flour, as I said I would put in. So put it in, and it's now getting kind of hard to turn and stir, which is good. That means that we're getting near the point where we can just knead it and get it onto its first rise. You can see it's got this lovely kind of light chocolate kind of color to it. So, and a bit more. And just for some texture, I'm going to put in about 1/4 cup worth of raw red rice. This stuff won't fully cook, which, I mean, it'll be fine to eat, but it'll be sort of crunchy within the bread, which gives it a nice texture. get that stuff in there. I have to use my hands in a second, I think. It's getting a little bit hard to do with a spoon. Okay, so a little more white, just so that my hands can get on there. And then we'll just knead it. And seeing as it's rice, I'm inclined to leave the dough just a little bit wet, rather than having it be totally dry, which is what I would normally do with a white. Just because this is going to soak up the moisture, so it's okay if it's just a little bit on the gloopy side. So just push it down, fold it over on itself, push it down again, regular kind of knead. And this will take about an hour to rise, to do its first rise, and then we'll punch it down, shape it. I think I'll roll this out into a baguette form and maybe do just a regular round for the other one, so I can show you what it looks like in two shapes. Okay, so that's kind of tacky, but it's holding together as a ball, no problem, right? So that's perfect. Put that there. I'm just going to clean out the bowl here for a second. Just about a tablespoon of oil is enough. So you don't want the bread sticking to the pan, or to the bowl as it rises. Okay, and then just put it in, turn it over, one more time, and there we go. And then just put a towel over it and let it rise for an hour. And take a peek, and just, it should double in size. So, and that'll be pretty obvious. And I would just go away for an hour and then come back. If you're in a particularly cool house, it may need a little bit longer. If you're in a really cold house, like if it's winter and you've got your thermostat pegged at like 16 or 17, you can always put the oven on at like 100 degrees, turn it off, and that just makes a nice warm environment for the bread, and you can put it in there. The yeast basically likes the same temperature as our body likes. So if it's around between room temperature and our own body temperature, yeast is happy. So if you can do that in an oven, great. If you can do it sitting on your counter, also good. So let me put a towel on this, and I will see you in an hour. Okay, so it's been an hour, and wow, this rose really, really nicely. Take a look, nice and big. So it's easily doubled in size, which is great. So let's just punch it down and pull it out, and just squeeze all of the carbon dioxide out. And as I said, with this one, I think what we should do is roll it out baguette shape for one half of it, and we can just do a regular round bread for the other half. So just get some of the bubbles out, and it smells nice. You can, okay, so let's put the bowl over here for the baguette part. Well, actually, let's split it in two first. So split it in two, just with your hands like this. Like that. It's stuck in my hands, that's fine. Just to give it a nice look. For this one, this will be the round one. Let's just put some red rice on the surface, and we'll roll it in the red rice a few times. So it'll stick, and that'll make it, give it a really nice look when it's baking. Don't worry if it falls off a bit, that's okay. Just roll it around in the rice. A little bit of imperfection is fine, that's what shows that it's homemade. I'll get a pan in a second. Just put that there. For this one though, I'm going to roll it out. So just take a little bit of the leftover flour, go like this. There we go. Okay, and just flatten it with your hand, and then take out a rolling pin, basic rolling pin, put some flour on it so that it can stick, and then just roll it out. And it doesn't have to be like paper thin or anything. Oops, let's just move that over there. maybe 1/4 of an inch. It's good. So roll it lengthwise like this once. Got a really nice color. It's gonna turn out really well, I think. This has a really nice color. It's still like a sort of light chocolate, sort of like a hot chocolate kind of color, which is interesting. As I recall from baking it, though, it turns into a more sort of reddish brown. Okay, so ideally you want a rectangle shape. This isn't quite a rectangle, but will do. And always roll the shortest side. Start with the shortest side. So just go like this. Roll, roll, roll. There we go. Now, there's a bit of a bump in the middle, so I'm just going to squeeze that out. There we go. Make sure the seam is on the bottom. And then, okay, so that's a nice size. And then on the end, pinch it in and pull that over. So it just sort of seals the end so it doesn't look like a giant croissant. Which would be okay if you're into that, of course. But, and then here too, just pull it over the end and pinch it under. And now I'm just going to get a pan to put these guys in. So here's a pan for them. And they need a little bit of oil. So, oil there. So I'll do them in 2 pans, I think, just because this one's so long. I don't want it to bump into the other one. There we go. So that will get covered up for an hour. These will both take about an hour to rise. They'll double in size. I'm going to preheat the oven to 425. I'm also going to put a bowl of water in there. I won't preheat the oven until near the end of that hour though. But the oven, when I come back, I will have already set the oven to 425, and there'll be a bowl of water in there as well, because the steam helps give the bread a nice crust. So that's all there is to it. I will see you in an hour. Okay, so I'm back. It's been about 24 minutes, and let's see how they are inside in the oven. So that worked out really nicely, and let's see how the round one did. And there's the round one. So two very different looks for these breads, of course. The baguette looks like a classic baguette. The splits opened up very nicely, and you can see bits of the red rice in there, sort of sticking through some of the cuts, which is great. Here, the red rice is really obvious because it's right on the top. So you can see it doesn't burn, which is good. Now, I think you should see what's inside here, though. So I am going to pop this onto a breadboard, and we'll slice them open so you can see what it looks like inside. Okay, so now let's take a much closer look at these. They look great. It smells really good in here. Okay, let's take a look inside the baguette first. Hear that crunch? Isn't that great? So that's the color inside the baguette. It's got a little reddy kind of color to it. It is red rice after all. So instead of a white, and it's not quite brown, it's really got a reddish tinge to it. And these things really, really taste nice. They have a nice kind of nutty taste to them. It's a little hot, but boy, it's ever loud in my mouth right now because I can hear the crunching of the crust. It's a really good crust. They're really, really soft inside, so and it smells nice too. Let's take a look at the round one now. And on this one, there we go. So you can see some of the rice inside it, and it too has that sort of really red look to it, with a great crust. So. I'm afraid I get to have all the fun eating this now. But I highly recommend you give this a go. You can do it with wild rice,
whole brown rice. White rice, I'm not sure there'd be much point, but I could be wrong. I haven't tried it with white rice, but it has a nice crunchy, nutty kind of bread. It's really, really good. Super with butter. Nice thing to put on the dinner table. And kind of different. And if you have only a mild gluten problem, I guess this would help, seeing as rice flour would be gluten-free. So give it a go. Let me know how it turns out. And one variation I have tried in the past, which is kind of spectacular if you're into it, is I used water, which I boiled a beet in. You know, I peeled a beet, very, very red beet, sliced it up, boiled it in some water, and then I used that water once it had cooled to the right temperature as my water for making the bread. And that makes this really red. You think it's a little bit red now. Boy, wait till you put beet water in it. It's super, super red, and it doesn't taste like beets. So if you want to make a really, really red rice bread, you can try that. So anyway, I hope this gives you some ideas. There's lots of things we can use as flour out there, not just the stuff we buy in stores. You can make your own flour at home using a spice grinder, or even a coffee grinder. Works just as well. So have some fun, experiment a little bit, and I look forward to hearing about how it goes. Take care.